Oh my God. Good morning, Jill Winebanks. Good morning.
Good morning. It's so worth getting up to hear that tune. I love it. It's
Yeah, it's
impossible.
early.
And I got to say that juror is not a prospective juror anymore, right?
Yeah, probably
That
not.
juror was excused
Right.
for sure.
Yeah. All right. So first of all, there's so much going on, but I want to get your take. Andrew Weissman tweeted, what does it mean DOJ is compelling Kash Patel to testify? It means DOJ is conferring immunity on him, which means he can't take the fifth, but his testimony and leads cannot be used against him. So DOJ has determined it cannot make a criminal case against him, but wants his testimony. Lawrence Tribe said once DOJ grants Kash Patel immunity, his Fifth Amendment rights against compelled self-incrimination will evaporate. He will then be forced to tell the truth about Trump's role in the Mar-a-Lago crimes against America's national security. The jig will be up. I was a little confused by those two different tweets. Can you give us your take on the Kash Patel testimony?
Okay, so I'm not sure what you saw as inconsistent. There's two kinds of immunity, and one is for use immunity, which means that you can be forced to testify, but that cannot be used against you. And in fact, it's a harder burden than just that you can't use it. The prosecution would have to prove that nothing in the trial against you came from the fruit of that testimony.
Okay.
So that it's a pretty hard burden to meet to say I never discovered a lead from that. The other is transactional immunity, which means that if you testify about transaction A, the disruption of January 6th confirmation of the vote, you can never be prosecuted for anything to do with that,
Right.
even if it's with evidence outside of that. So assuming that he gets use immunity, it means that he still could be prosecuted, but he just can't be prosecuted using his own words against him. He can be prosecuted for anything they can show. We knew this before you testified. Here's the evidence we had. We got it from the grand jury on a date that precedes your testimony, etc.
Yeah.
So he still can be prosecuted even if he gets immunity.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Thank you. So let's talk now. You tweeted about Eastman. You said judge orders more Eastman emails released, citing fraud pushed by Trump. You can lie to the public, but not in court. Trump and Eastman caught lying. Will true Trumpers ever learn? I mean, this has been happening consistently, right? What they say on the courtroom steps or on TV, they can't say in court, right?
Exactly. And of course, the answer to my question about will they ever learn, I would say that my Twitter followers resoundingly said, no, they will never learn.
Right.
They will keep on lying outside of court, and the Trump cult will keep on believing every lie that they tell. So that's where we're at in this country is facts don't really matter to Trump supporters. They will accept anything. It's
Yeah.
quite amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an ugly situation where reality has left the stage, so
Yeah.
to speak.
So your other tweet was special master tells Trump lawyers to provide the beef as to why documents are privileged and notes they can't be privileged and personal at the same time. Good analysis. So where are we on the document case?
We're still in their delaying and defying, but it's mostly a delay tactic. I believe that the special master has shown that he's going to make a impartial, neutral judgment as to what is and what isn't within privilege. And they can't just say it's privileged. They have to show why it would be privileged. And they're taking the position of they can't be forced to answer. And he said, well, yeah, if you don't answer, then I will assume that there is no answer and it won't be viewed as privileged. So the crime fraud exception is one that no matter what they say,
Yeah.
if a communication is in furtherance of committing a crime, then it doesn't count as privileged and you get to get it. I mean, that goes back to probably forever, but certainly the first I was aware of it was during Watergate when the Supreme Court said, yeah, the privilege is not absolute. The privilege gets waived when it's in part of a crime. It gets waived when the national interest outweighs the privilege interest, so that in this case, there's no way to get the information except by having this testimony revealed. So
Right.
therefore, it's not privileged.
Right. Speaking of having to swat down lies, partisan Democrats were not the ones who referred Trump to the Justice Department for taking documents from the White House. The National Archives said in a statement, they said at no time and under no circumstances were NARA officials pressured or influenced by committee Democrats or anyone else. This is a long I mean, the stuff that Trump puts out on his whatever it is, right? Truth sent, whatever. I actually have forgotten the name of it. What's the actual name?
Truth Social.
Okay.
Truth Social.
I mean, it's just a steady stream of lies, right?
Yes, it is. And it's the danger of it is that people are believing his lies and acting on his lies. So he may be motivating really dangerous conduct as a result of these lies. It's shameful, and yet the First Amendment allows it to happen, and we can't shut it down. So there you go. We're going to have this happening. And I think it's maybe one of the most crucial issues facing our country now is how do we get truth to be something that matters? How do we get people to learn how to evaluate what is true and what isn't? Illinois, my state, has just adopted a course basically teaching students how to evaluate what they're reading and how to determine if something is reliable or not. That's, we shouldn't be in a situation where that's true, but it's necessary now, isn't it? I mean, you have a president who should be believed. I mean, I respect the president, or I used to anyway. Yeah. I was brought up to respect the president, regardless of what party the president was from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can't anymore because I see in front of me blatant lies. And the reason they don't do it in court papers is because the lawyers who file it and the plaintiff or defendant, it could be a defendant, who does it, go to jail for that. They get fined. They get disbarred. So that's why it's not happening in court papers. Yeah. It's only happening in the public domain.
So let's go back. Let's go back to January 6th. The reporting this morning: the former president saw a chance for a live televised spectacle. His advisors saw a fast track to perjury charges almost immediately after J6 committee announced it will subpoena Trump. He began telling people close to him he would love to testify if he got to do it on live television, even if the idea sent Trump's advisors scrambling to convince him it would be a disaster. Absolutely effing not, one of Trump's advisors on legal matters told Rolling Stone, summarizing the advice they gave Trump. The advisors cautioned Trump that committee members would mine his testimony for potential perjury charges, particularly given Trump's penchant for lying. So what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, there's obviously a conflict between two interests. One is getting his story out in prime time and being able to dominate the stage. And the fact that he would be under oath. And so that anything he says, we're back to that issue again, which is anything he says under oath is perjury eligible anyway. If he lies, he can be subjected to perjury. If he tells a newspaper or if he tells Truth Social a lie, well, so what? It's just a lie. It isn't something that he goes to jail for. The last thing I heard was one of his many OAN or, I think it was OAN lawyers, said, oh, yes, he's going to testify. He has nothing to hide. And I can't remember her name.
It was Alina Habba.
Alina Habba, exactly. I was going to say I thought it was an A or a B.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alina Habba. And I don't think that that's true because, one, I think that the committee would be able to control him. He's not going to just be able to get up there and spew an hour's worth of lies. He's going to have to answer specific questions or take the fifth. Yeah. And I can't imagine him doing that in public. And so I don't think it'll happen. But that is the latest that I've heard is, oh, yes, he has nothing to hide. He's going to testify.
Hope Hicks sat yesterday, was it, for the J6 committee? Yeah. I mean, it is hard to tell what's going on, whether it's her or Kash Patel, right? Are they telling the truth? Are they taking the fifth? What do you think?
It's impossible to know. I mean, if there's immunity, they don't, as you pointed out, they can't take the fifth anymore. That's the end of the fifth. For some reason, her relationship Hope Hicks' relationship to Donald Trump and her departure from his world makes me think that maybe he will tell the truth. Kash Patel, I don't know. I mean, he was there on January 6th. He was doing, I think, bad stuff at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
The other person who's, we haven't heard much about is Chris Miller. And I keep wanting to know what's happening to Chris Miller.
Yeah.
And has he testified? He would be such an interesting witness. I interviewed him for iGen Politics.
Oh, okay.
And I have to say, it's an amazing interview with a person. He almost walked off the show when my colleague Victor Shi, who was at the time, I think, 19, asked him a question. He almost fled the scene. And I talked him down off the ledge. He stayed, but he was there. He knows what happened.
What was the question? Because he's the one that turned down the Secret Service request for National Guard. Was it 14 times?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about was, his conversations with Trump, his willingness to dispatch troops. And he thought it was a gotcha moment. And it was like a simple, please tell me what happened kind of question. It was not a gotcha moment.
Yeah.
So,
and Victor was at Sexy Liberal LA Saturday, and I can tell you he's cuddly. He is cuddly.
We got to meet finally.
He's cuddly. He is not scary.
He is so smart. He's a wonderful, amazing person. And you were so sexy. Oh my God, the pictures of you, it was wonderful. No, your skirt was not too short.
Oh, thank you, Jill Wine-Banks. No, it was not. The consensus is no, and Jill has settled it. Thank you very much, Jill.
Absolutely.
Real quick, the latest Secret Service reporting that they shocking knowledge of January 6th threats well before the attack. New documents show that they failed to notify the Capitol Police for over an hour of an assassination plot against Chuck Schumer. I just am curious. What do you think is going to happen in regards to the Secret Service?
Well, I think it depends on what happens in November. If the Democrats hold the House, then I think there is a good chance that there will be a full investigation of the Secret Service. Mm-hmm. There needs to be some serious looking at the Secret Service. They have really made me question how much we can rely on them to protect the President of the United States. Yeah. That their politics won't get in the way. It seems to me they should have no politics that have any influence on this at all. And that's how it used to be. But it's obvious now that they are not acting in the best interests of the country and in doing their job, which is to protect the president and everybody around him.
Right. Something we always assumed was nonpartisan. The other thing is just the judiciary in general. I wanted to just get your take on that before we go. That I said this to Glenn Kirshner, is I feel like that's the saddest thing, is just this partisanship that has infected the entire judiciary, whether it's Clarence Thomas helping Lindsey Graham not have to testify in Georgia. This one, Steve Bannon said Dr. Anthony Fauci's entire family is going to suffer and be hunted after the midterms. Last year, Bannon said Fauci's head should be placed on a pike outside the White House. Fauci has just hired security guards. I mean, they are in advance saying we are going to try to weaponize the justice system in the United States against our enemies, right?
Absolutely. And I can only imagine if they get control of the Congress, what kind of investigations are going to happen. There will be no factual predicate. There will be no reasonable basis for doing it. But there will be impeachment proceedings brought against the president for sure, and maybe against the liberal justices who are voting to protect the rights that we have all come to know and love and expect to continue, even though they are at risk. It will be a do-nothing Congress in terms of protecting the rights of people. It will be really ugly. So
and
November, there's a lot at stake.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's like, that's what's sad, is we have to go, oh, is this a Trump-appointed judge? Or, because it's like playing whack-a-mole with whether you're going to get a fair ruling or not, depending on, there's just an assumption that judges are partisan now, or all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yes, and it certainly is. I mean, the fact that there hasn't been recusal in any case, including the Lindsey Graham case,
Yeah.
that Thomas absolutely has no right to be making decisions on, and should be recusing. I don't know how he can keep getting away with it. That's one of the other things that hopefully a Democratic Congress would take up, and that is to somehow impose on the Supreme Court some code of conduct that is enforceable.
Yep.
Right now, they don't have it.
Yep.
And there's nothing that can be done even by the Chief Justice. He
Yep.
has no power to do anything.
Yep. The only thing that can be done is for you to buy a ticket to Sexy Liberal pay-per-view, as Jill Wine-Banks has urged you, and also my dress is not too short. Jill
Yeah, it
Wine-Banks is the judge in this case and has settled the matter. Thank you, Jill Wine-Banks. You
And
are.
I know something about short skirts and publicity.
Yes,
Thank
you
you,
do.
Watergate girl. All right, love you. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
There she goes, Jill Wine. She settled it.
Yeah,
There.
it's settled law.
Yes, exactly. It's
Yeah.
precedent now. Oh, you know who else says so?
Who?
My future mother-in-law. Girlfriend's mother said it's not too short. She said, you know what we wore in the 70s? That was the whole look. Short boots. Settled.